The Dragon Ball home video releases have always been filled with a lot of different controversy. What's going on, guys? This is Starblast Studios, and welcome back to the Plastic Power Podcast. Joining me here today, of course, is, Daredevil19, the man who's always with the podcast. But today, guys, this is episode number 11. And episode number 11, with this episode number, it is the closest thing we can currently get to, 101. Obviously, because, it's going to be a long time till we get there. Speaking of 101, we have a very special guest. You can see right over here, if you're watching it on YouTube. If you're watching on Spotify, you don't know. You're in suspense. Please welcome the man who is probably like the most knowledgeable person, the best Dragon Ball Z news reporter in the community for this stuff, Geekdom101.
You put a lot of pressure on me, man. Look, it's a real pleasure to be here on the PP podcast. I have a very small PP. I have a very small PP, so please forgive me for that. Like what Mr. Starblast edits for me sometimes, shorts. That describes my PP, but I'm happy to be here talking about Dragon Ball.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Welcome.
Yeah. It is an honor having you here, man. So yes. Okay, so like I said at the very beginning, so basically, Funimation and Toei, they've all kind of had like a lot of like bad rep and a lot of like and a lot of like really like bad ways that they've gone about releasing the Dragon Ball home releases and such. But we're going to try starting off a little bit from the beginning just so you guys can understand just how bad this stuff is. So, Geekdom, since you're the first person on here, like you're the guest, I would like you to kind of start us off a little bit. We're talking about like I believe they started with this began with the Pioneer sets that Funimation released way back when. This is just in the US.
Well, we're talking about just the U.S. right now, right?
For right now, yeah, just for the U.S.
Okay, yeah, because the Japan's actually a little bit easier to explain. The U.S. is the one that has the convoluted releases. So you want me to just go into it?
Yeah, go ahead.
So what happened was when Dragon Ball and Z were first being dubbed back in like 95, 96, they did outsource to Pioneer. It was Funimation, Saban, and Pioneer working together. And so they did have VHS and DVD releases. What you got back then, and those of you who are like old school Dragon Ball fans, you'll remember this. Some of the newer fans will have no idea what I'm talking about. But back in the mid-90s, you had VHS first, of course. DVD was more like 97, 98, early DVDs. You had these tapes that had 3 episodes, and you only got the censored dub. Very few anime back in the mid-90s actually released subtitled versions. There were some companies that did it. Manga Entertainment did it. A few other ones did. ADV did it, I think. But Funimation or definitely not for kids. They still don't do it. But people like Funimation, Harmony Gold, they never released like bilingual DVDs until many years later. So you only had access to the dub, and that was it. Now, at the time, nobody really knew, except for the hardcore fans, how much censorship was in the old Dragon Ball Z DVDs and Dragon Ball ones. We didn't have any idea on all the details until now, as many years have gone by. Some people are still finding out about this now. So it was actually simple. It was actually pretty simple. But here's the big sort of controversy is, besides just the censorship, what they did back then, and this is something that Harmony Gold was doing in the 80s, and Saban, and Funimation did it. Actually, Dick Entertainment, that's the name of the company. That's the name of the company. I'm not just saying that. Deke, remember Deke? They did Sailor Moon. They did the same thing where, like, for example, the Saiyan saga in Dragon Ball Z is 35 episodes, DBZ 1 through 35. But the English one is DBZ 1 through 26. And that's because they would chop up the episodes to where they would cut out entire sequences, entire scenes of filler, entire scenes that were not filler but they felt were unimportant to the story, to shorten it up, because their whole mentality back then was that kids who were fans of Dragon Ball, and it's kind of a really offensive mentality. They thought that American kids were all a bunch of sugared up ADD kids that couldn't handle anything slow, and it had to be action, music. And because of that, the series, if you watch the Ocean dub, the original English dub of Z, it's very different product. It's still Dragon Ball Z, but you're missing a lot of scenes. So by the time they finished the first 2 seasons of DBZ, I'm using that in an English perspective, you had 67 Dragon Ball Z episodes cut down into 53. What they did for syndication was they took the Tree of Might film, redubbed it, cut it into 3 episodes. Those never came out on home video as episodes. They did come out because at the end of the season 1 and 2 dubbing, they took Peter Kalamis, Scott McNeil, the Ocean Crew, and dubbed the first 3 Dragon Ball Z movies, Dead Zone, World's Strongest, Tree of Might. But those, because those were not in syndication, were treated completely different. Different scripts, 95% accurate to the Japanese. They kept the original Kikuchi score. Icarus was named Haya Dragon. They kept most of the Japanese names and everything. It was a phenomenal dub, and for years that was the best Dragon Ball dub we had. Literally, that was the best one, the most accurate. But that was only for the first 3. Now, those came out on DVD and Laserdisc. There's a throwback.
Laserdisc, man.
Laserdisc first. And let me tell you, if somebody out there has these DVDs or even Laserdisc, they're worth some money. So if you're out there and you've got them, be aware of their value because they're out of print. And that's just how it was for a while. And then when 1999 rolled around, by that point, the DVD market grew. And at that point, by 98, August of 98, Dragon Ball Z started airing on Toonami, found a whole new audience, broke every record that they had done in the afternoon time slot, and Funimation was told by Cartoon Network, we need more Dragon Ball. Funimation goes to Toei saying we need more episodes. And then at that point, they brought all the stuff in-house. I was told directly from Chris Sabat that, and by Ken Fukunaga at the Broly premiere, that was done to cut costs. Because what would happen was Barry Watson would have to fly all the way to Vancouver, Canada to record with the Ocean Dub and fly back to Texas. So he'd be flying back every week, and that cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
So instead, they hired new actors, paid them pennies, because those actors in Canada actually got paid a living wage. Chris Sabat made $20,000 the first year he did Dragon Ball Z, and he voiced like 8 characters. It's insane, and that's and $20,000 in 1999 is not a lot of money. Obviously, now it's even less. So when that happened, they decided to bring everything in house. Pioneer was removed from the picture, and then they started to release. Then it got interesting. Then they started to release Dragon Ball Z VHS tapes, 2 different versions. You had Uncut and Cut. And they did that because they were still kind of trepidatious about the anime audience. Dragon Ball and anime has still been considered a cartoon, so they wanted to give parents the option of getting a more censored version. So, for example, the scene where Frieza impales Krillin, if you have the cut VHS, the majority of it has been totally cut out. If you saw it on Toonami, that when he's shaking him and all that stuff got cut. So that's an example. But it still was more violent than Ocean. Ocean would actually draw over the blood with like black water, like sweat. Funimation kept a lot of the blood in there, but it's just not the super gory stuff. But what happened was, starting in 1999 with Ginyu Assault, we started getting our first look at bilingual DVDs. Now, at the time, this was a huge deal because Dragon Ball Z had only been released in Japanese if you had those Pioneer DVDs, because the Pioneer DVDs, the uncensored ones, had both languages on them, and the laser discs had both languages on them. So this is the first time that the DBZ episodes were Japanese subtitled, and there were collectors who had been tape trading for years, like myself. We were going crazy over this because it was like, oh my God, we can actually buy the show now, in Japanese and English. But it's never perfect. That's one thing that unfortunately will be the lesson that we're going to learn from this. It's never perfect. There's always a problem. They were missing some things. Not to sound too granular, they were missing like next episode previews, and the early DVDs were missing recaps, and the video quality was not great. It was DVD, but it wasn't like a good source. What happened was, if you want me to get nerdy with you,
Go right ahead.
Okay, good. And this is stuff that I found out throughout the years. I didn't know this back in 99. I was 15 years old in 99.
Yeah, we didn't know. Yeah, back then, the internet wasn't as big either. So I remember back then, you don't find anything out unless you hear it in a magazine or hearsay or something.
And there was very few of that in magazines. I mean, dude, in 1999, all I thought about was Dragon Ball, wrestling, Anyways, you know what I'm saying. I'm just gonna
Oh
do the
my
hand
God.
motion, bro. I did the hand motion for the Spotify people. Well, I was 15, man. What do 15-year-olds think about? So
Yeah, I think I
video
was
games.
about that age too.
Right.
Yeah.
So what happened was they put out these censored DVDs, but at least we're getting like whole arcs now. The Frieza saga had where we could see it uncut for the first time, the whole thing. Then later on we had Trunks, Android, Majin Buu, etc. And so it was still a groundbreaking time. But like I said, it wasn't perfect. The audio wasn't great. But it's the best that we had at the time. And that was kind of like the end of the first generation of like Dragon Ball Z, GT, and Dragon Ball. Now I don't know if I want to get into Dragon Ball because Dragon Ball, original Dragon Ball, was weird. Here's why I say that, because
didn't they not dub that stuff until like much later because they thought Z was the better place to start, since it had much more action and it was more like stuff that they felt like kids would like.
Sort of. That was why that's why Ocean went to Z originally. Funimation's reason was different. Funimation's reason was because two reasons. Number one, they had already started Z, and Z was the show that blew up on Toonami. So they're like, okay, Cartoon Network wants Dragon Ball Z, not Dragon Ball. We're going to give them Dragon Ball Z. And number two, the original 13 episodes of Dragon Ball, because of what the deal that Ocean and Pioneer, it wasn't Pioneer, it was Kidmark actually, Ocean made with Kidmark back in 1995, they had the rights to the first 13 episodes of Dragon Ball until 2006. Same thing with Dragon Ball Movie 1. That's why we never got a Funimation dub of Dragon Ball Movie 1 until after all the Z and GT stuff. That was the last thing that they dubbed until Kai, was Dragon Ball Movie 1, because they couldn't do it until they got the rights to it. It's one of those legal things that you just can't. Like, you can't sell something somebody else has a license to.
Like the Marvel movies, similar to that situation. Like when Sony had the Hulk and Spider-Man, but then they got Hulk back. Oh no, they didn't get Hulk back.
I think Paramount had Hulk.
Yeah, Paramount still has Hulk.
Yeah.
They still had
Spider-Man. Sony had Spider-Man, and who had Daredevil?
Fantastic Four had. Fantastic Four was an X-Men.
Fox too. Yeah.
20th Century Fox.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but in this case, it was weird, because here's why it was weird, because the distribution was only for the home video market, not for television. So when Toonami aired Dragon Ball episodes 1 through 13, it was the Funimation dub. You just couldn't buy it on the home video market. This is one of those like things where if you're into contracts and stuff, it's the one. So the reason why I'm bringing up Dragon Ball for a moment is because the reason why I say it's weird is because they only released VHS tapes up until like the early Red Ribbon, then they just stopped. There's no VHS tape of the Piccolo arc. It doesn't exist. Not an official one from Funimation. And I think the reason for that was because by the time that Dragon Ball was being dubbed, which is about 2002, 2003, 2004, everybody had a DVD player. The PS2 came with a built-in DVD player, and everybody had a PS2, so forget it. Like, it's done. So it made sense. But I only bring that up because, like, just to get granular. And then finally in like 06, 07, Funimation did everything they could. They finished up the Z movies. GT was already done. Dragon Ball was done. And then that was kind of it for a while. Things got kind of quiet. But then what happened was around, and let me rewind a little bit, around 04, 05, not the mainstream, but the Dragon Ball fandom had become more aware that the Pioneer episodes, the Ocean dub episodes, had been chopped up. I mentioned 67 episodes got cut down to 53. So if you look at the original dub episode numbers, Dragon Ball Z 1 to 291 is the Japanese numbers. The dub numbers is Dragon Ball Z 1 to 276, which is why if you go online, you can still find torrents or even IRC pages that list Dragon Ball Z as having 276 episodes, which is wrong. It's 291. But that's because they only had the original censored dub and then the rest of the Funimation stuff. So what happened was they put out something called the Ultimate Uncut Editions, which was, we're going to go back... We're going to redub Dead Zone, World's Strongest, and Tree of Might with the internal Texas cast. Schemmel, Sabat, Monica, the ones that became the Dragon Ball voices everybody knew, not the Canadian cast.
Yeah,
we're going to do that, and then we're going to go and do the first 3 movies again. So they were kind of like trying to wipe Pioneer away and Ocean away.
Yeah.
Right. And they did the original Dragon Ball Z episodes 1 through 67 now uncut. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out the way that they wanted it to, which really became the first of many fumbles that Funimation gave us, and the first time they stuck it to us. They never finished the Ultimate Uncuts. So if you were out there in 2005, 6, and you were collecting the Ultimate Uncuts, you were never going to get the original 2 arcs, the Saiyan and Namek saga. It was impossible because they literally stopped production before they even finished the Saiyan saga. I mentioned before we started recording that they were selling this box, like it was like a cool looking plastic box, and it was a box that you buy to put your DVDs in that had like the Vegeta art and all that cool stuff. And if you bought that box, because you could pre-order it. So the idea was you pre-order the box and you buy the DVDs to put into the box as they come out. Well, guess what? Because we never got the end of the Saiyan saga, if you have that box, you've got like 6 DVDs, and the 7th one, or maybe a 7th and the 8th one, is empty. So you've got like a hole in the box that you can't even fill. Garbage. So if you spent your money, here comes the passionate part now. If you spent your hard-earned money to get Dragon Ball Z uncut, dubbed, or sub, because those had both languages on them, screw it.
Yep.
So what they did then, and that was it. And then that was like, oh, what are we going to do? Meanwhile, on Toonami The Midnight Run, they started to air the Ultimate Uncut episodes all the way through Namek. Yeah, with the red background, the red and black, ugly colors.
Yeah. I started at like the Android saga. That's when I discovered it for the first time.
A lot of people did. Yeah, that was a big starting point. Frieza and Android was, but it gave us a chance to go back and see the episodes uncut, and they were called the Ultimate Uncut editions. I think even Cartoon Network called them DBZ Uncut. But here's the thing, though. Was it really uncut? Well, video quality-wise, yes. Script-wise, no. I've said this before, and I'm not going to turn this to dub versus sub, but Dragon Ball Z Episode 1 has over 65 dub changes in one episode. So if Episode 1 has that many dub changes...
Imagine the whole series.
Imagine the whole series.
Frieza is not saying "Pop goes the weasel" when he's stabbing Krillin with his horn.
No, but that's
not.
Line,
that is not. It is a funny line, but that's not at all like what he should be saying.
No.
and some of the dub changes were like minor, but some were like actually affecting the story. But that's a whole other
Hope in the Universe speech. Big example right there.
That's one of the biggest. But yeah. So after that, it kind of got quiet for a while. Then is when Funimation. Now again, think about this. You're a Dragon Ball Z fan. You want to get every episode. It doesn't matter if you like sub or dub. You just want every episode. You want to watch it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter at this point. You've invested your money. You're not getting the whole thing. So Funimation says, okay, we're going to start over again. So they started advertising what would be known as the Dragon Ball Z Remastered Collection. And that's what they called it. Because it was remastered in name only. And this has become commonly now known as the Orange Bricks. That would be in 2006. In 2006. And from the very beginning, these had problems. The only good thing about the Orange Bricks, there are 2 good things about the Orange Bricks. One, it was the first time you can get... Well, let me get there. Yes.
Go ahead.
One, they're cheap. They are not very expensive, especially now. Like, they're mad cheap now.
Oh, yeah. They're like $20-25 or something like that.
For each one, you can get the whole series for like $200. 2, the other good thing is it was the first time you can get all of DBZ uncut in Japanese and English, but also in Japanese, which is the real reason to get it for collectors who wanted to see the Japanese version. First time ever in America. So everybody who had been screwed over by the original releases and by the Ultimate Uncuts were like, okay, at least we're going to get the whole series now. The problem then came when it comes to the blatant lies and marketing fallacies that Funimation put out during this time. The promos, which by the way are still on YouTube, you can look it up. Just type in Orange Brick after DBZ promos
Yeah.
are literally lying to the audience. For example, the biggest lie was Chris Sabat was narrating it. I'm not blaming Chris Sabat for this. He doesn't know anything about this. I mean, he knows now, but he didn't know back then.
Yeah, he was probably just doing his job.
Yeah, he's doing his job.
Chris Sabat, he was.
Yeah.
He knows now, but he didn't know back then. In the promo, he's doing the voiceover, you know, and in the promo, he refers to it as Dragon Ball Z, the way it was meant to be seen, right? And now the reason as to why they use that marketing is because in the mid-2000s is when we started seeing the rise of high definition in the West. Flat screen HD TVs were coming out. 720p became the norm. If you remember, the Xbox and the PS3 came out right around then, and they were HDMI. They promoted this set as Dragon Ball Z remastered in high definition. That's a lie. That is a blatant 100% fallacy because of two reasons. Number one, it wasn't a remaster at all. They did very minimal work on it. They put it over a filter. Number two, you can't have a high definition remaster on a DVD. It's literally impossible. A digital video. Even back then I knew this. A digital video disc only contains X number of data. Even a double layered DVD. You cannot fit high definition. Like right here I have the Rocky collection. This is the Blu Ray collection. I can't fit Rocky 1 on here onto a DVD because this thing is like, I believe like 15 gigs or 7 to 15 gigs. A DVD is like, even a double layered one is like way, like you can't. So
yeah, if a movie was too long, they'd have it on two discs, kind of like VHS, but
right. Yeah, for sure. And even like they would have the extras sometimes on the second disc. But nowadays you buy a Blu-ray, you get one disc and it has all the extras on it.
Yeah, everything's
so
on
much
it.
more. There's so much more space. But they lied. They straight up lied. And the other thing they did, which really, really was a problem, it's one thing to have bad video quality. It's something else to actually kill what you have. They cropped it. And the reason why they cropped it is because at the time, people were buying widescreen televisions. So the idea was, well, if we crop it, it'll fill up the entire screen.
They didn't want black bars on the sides.
They did not want black bars on the side, even though that's become a lot more accepted now. Maybe back then it wasn't so much so, but
everybody was transitioning.
But even then, it's like it's such a dumb move for them to do that because if people are really like that, like hell bent on like they hate the black bars on the side. There's like this zoom feature on a bunch of remotes where they can just like zoom in and it's like there you go, like they get that exact ratio Funimation put out in the orange bricks.
Yes, because if you zoom in, you're going to crop the top and bottom. But the thing is, they weren't the only ones. I vividly remember Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV show. I never watched it, but I remember a lot of friends of mine complaining because they did the same thing. They cropped the top and bottom to fit the screen. Television shows in the 90s, pretty much every television show prior to the mid-2000s, with the exception of very few. There were a few. Were shot in 4:3 aspect ratio for television because when television first came out, like first became like a thing that people had in their homes in like the 50s, nobody had a widescreen TV. Like nobody did. It was all like it was all square. So television, I'm not gonna go nerdy on you too much, but like if you go to film school, there's a difference. And especially back then. Now, not so much. Now the game is different because everybody has a widescreen TV. But back then, when you shot a movie for television, a made-for-TV movie, you had to set up your camera angles totally different because you had to factor in that extra room up. So you had to frame things differently. If you go back and you watch any made-for-TV movie and really pay attention to like where the characters are standing when they're talking compared to other movies, you'll notice this. It's not hard to spot. I learned this actually just a few years ago. So DBZ was never meant to be seen cropped. It was meant to be seen 4:3. The movies, on the other hand, those were animated in 4:3, but they were meant to be cropped. So that's fine. Those were acceptable to be cropped. They were not cropped, but they were supposed to be seen as 16:9 widescreen aspect ratio, not 4:3. So if you're a Dragon Ball Z fan, there are episodes where they cut off Master Roshi's head where literally you see his body in the upper screen. You don't see his head. You're missing details at the bottom. You're
this
missing
shot as well, like, you know, Goku and Vegeta are just like staring down each other, and like you can't even see Goku's head when he looks at Vegeta.
Top of his hair is chopped off.
The man's just decapitated.
Yeah, and back then, I know I didn't notice it. You really don't get to notice it until you can compare it, like how we can now. We can compare it now, and you can see the differences between all the different DVD formats we got and Blu Ray now, and even the older.
Exactly. It's just like a lot of people, like they don't know the difference. They don't realize just how much they're not able to see because of the fact that, you know, this is the only way that they know the show. Some people, they only have actually seen stuff through the Blu-ray sets or through, like, you know, the way that, you know, that even
some have only seen the orange bricks.
Yeah, they've only seen the orange bricks, exactly.
Yep.
And it's just like, and then there's just like, I remember there was like this one like major problem with the orange bricks as well. There's this one shot of Goku, you know, in his Super Saiyan state, and like because of this weird filter that they put over the orange bricks, removing the grain and such, what it's like this thing that this filter that's for removing grain, it takes out so much of the detail in his face. You can't see his mouth. Part of the lines that they draw, you know, for his eyes, like also gets taken out. It looks really, really bad overall.
Yeah,
they thought it was acceptable.
I wish I have it in this drawer there. I should have actually gone to go get it before I started recording, but I have bootleg Hong Kong DVDs of Dragon Ball Z episodes that were released with the Japanese Dragon boxes, but it's 9 episodes per disc, which has a very low bit rate because they're crammed in there. Mm-hmm. The fact that, and I'm not making this up, this is a true story. I used to have Netflix, the DVD rental thing, not the streaming service. Before then, they would send you DVDs, and I remember one time I wanted I ordered one of the orange bricks. I wanted to see it on my television, and at this time I already had a widescreen TV. I had everything. So I swear to you, my Hong Kong bootlegs of Dragon Ball Z that were sourced from the orange brick. I'm sorry, from the Dragon boxes. Looked better than the official Funimation ones. When you have a bootleg that's being sold for $15 a pop in like the slums of New York City and New Jersey flea markets, that's better than what you're putting out officially, dude. That's embarrassing. Funimation should be embarrassed.
That is bad.
Just like how now we have fans doing their own upscales of Dragon Ball. It looks better than what they're putting out. How embarrassing, bro, to be a multi-million-dollar company and put out trash. But it's happening. It's not just a Dragon Ball thing. It happens.
Yeah, they probably thought it was easy money. Easy money, throw it out there. People will buy it because it's the complete series now with the orange bricks.
That's the point.
That's exactly it.
You know, they're definitely milking the franchise, and the more we talk about this, the more that people are going to understand. So just to put it into perspective right now, so the releases that people have are okay. So like and not talking about like the ones with the ultimate uncut editions that never really got finished, but the best ways that people currently have in order to like that are know about is like I believe like the old outdated like 3 episodes a DVD, 3 episodes VHS thing, and then the orange bricks. Obviously, the orange bricks right now are currently, you know, what is viewed as
they're still being sold.
But
just
back then we're looking at a perspective like you know, early 2000s.
Right
Now the only
I'm just letting you know that you can still get them.
Now the only other thing that's still currently out there, and this is before then, is that a bunch of fans, they hear about this mythical Dragon Ball release that is only available currently in Japan, and this is called the Dragon Boxes. This is the one.
So do you want to shift over to Japan real quick?
Yeah, let's go ahead and shift over to Japan. Let's go ahead and talk about that so we know where we're talking about.
The fact that I can do all this without writing anything down, I'm surprised I'm not a virgin still. That was a miracle that I got laid at some point in my life, bro. Let me tell you. It's a miracle, bro. Thank you to the I'm sorry. No.
Oh, my God.
I'm kidding. I'm joking.
The Red District was great.
A friend paid for it. No, I'm joking. No, okay, so now we're going to shift gears and go to Japan. There's a reason why, because the Japanese story is actually pretty interesting. So, Dragon Ball Z in the 90s was coming out on television in Japan on Fuji TV Wednesday nights at 7. Dragon Ball NGT, same time slot, Dr. Slump. It's all right, fine. Japan never had a VHS home release of the Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Ball GT anime. They had the movies come out on VHS. So in Japan, they were able to buy the movies on VHS, you know, the DBZ 13 movies, the 3 Dragon Ball ones, the Path to Power, but not the TV series. So what happened was, and this, to me, this is a very interesting story because these two things kind of go together. This is why I'm glad we're telling the story in order. Mm-hmm. Around the 90s to 2000s, Japan started to notice that the Japanese were importing the Funimation DVDs. Because remember, think about how Japan was. In the late 90s, early 2000s, DVD players were already out there. The PS2 made a bunch of money in 2000. Everybody had a DVD player in Japan. There were fans who wanted Dragon Ball Z, and they wanted it in Japanese. So what did they do? They said, well, we're not getting Dragon Ball Z, so we might as well import it from America. So our Funimation sets that I just mentioned with both languages were being sent to Japan so they could watch their own show. They had to get their show from the Americans.
Oh my gosh.
So Toei Animation,
different times.
It's just funny how things work. Toei Animation noticed this and said, okay, maybe what we need to do is actually release Dragon Ball Z ourselves. So in 2003, they began work. Well, actually, it was in 01, but it came out in 03 on the Dragon Box collection, which was basically what they did is they took their original 16 millimeter film, and they gave it to a company called Pony Canyon. Pony Canyon is like a boutique production company, and what they do is they go into the footage, they clean it up, they do touch-ups on it, they fix it, and then they put it on DVD. So Toei had given them the original film, and then they took that film and produced the Dragon Boxes. The Dragon Boxes were originally a Japanese-only release. There were 2 boxes. There was Z had two. They were big. They were this big, tall. I have them in the other room, and so they had Z in 2 parts. Part 1 was, I think, Dragon Ball Z 1 through like 150 something with the Bardock special, and then Part 2 was Dragon Ball Z 151 to like 291, the rest of it, and then it also had the Plan to Eradicate OVA, and it had the Trunks special. So that's how they released it, because remember, Bardock and Trunks are not movies. They're TV. They're 1-hour TV episodes. Everybody forgets this, but they're specials. So what happened was these came out. Everybody was going nuts. All the American fans were like, oh my God, their video quality looks a million times better than ours. No cropping. The audio sounded better. The video was clean. Higher bit rate. Their blacks and whites balancing was better. It was the best. It was, honestly, the Dragon Boxes were the best complete. Well, technically, they're, and here's why I'm being saying technically. Up until today, they still are like the best official Japanese release. Now, I want you to hear what I said. Official Japanese release, because there's more to the story. So that was the peak. So what happened was they put them out, and they were very expensive. Each Dragon Box, they had the 2 Z ones. Then they went back and did Dragon Ball, and then GT, and then Dragon Box the movie. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Dragon Boxes total. They were big. It's about this big or so when you have all of them. Every episode, every movie, done. People were like, oh my God, like it's the entirety of Dragon Ball. Every single episode from Dragon Ball through GT, every movie, good quality, DVD extras. They, beautiful packaging, beautiful booklet. Told you it told you like the original broadcast date. It gave you a summary. It told you where it compared to the manga. It gave you character bios. It's a very nice set. It's a beautiful collection to this day. The Japanese one even has interviews that the other American Dragon Box that we'll get to in a minute didn't have. So this was the best release.
Even now, though, you could still find there's a bunch of flaws with it in modern day because didn't Toei go ahead and decide to throw away their audio, like the stereo audio for the broadcast releases?
We can talk about that if you want to. That is something probably worth discussing. I don't know if you want to get to that now or if you want to just wait for later. How do you want to do it?
Here, you know what? Okay. Well, I was just gonna say, like, right now, because we're gonna be talking about, like, the Dragon Box release, seeing as it is currently what is considered, the best, like, overall package of Dragon Ball Z you can currently get. Officially, currently
from Toei.
Yeah, we could, like, at the very least, I think at the very least it's a good idea to highlight, like, the flaws with it and why, like, we still require a better updated release that we're still trying to get, from these companies till this very day.
Well, I think the main reason as to why we should get a better release is not just what you said, but also the fact that we're now in the Blu Ray 4K era. So DVD, even though I would say still about 65% of people still buy DVDs. DVD is still the primary, like, disc. We are, like, enthusiasts and most even regular people have a Blu-ray player, and Blu-rays like become, like, so I feel like maybe it's, and we're going to get to the Dragon Ball Z Blu-ray shortly, but because there's a story with that too. But what Heish is talking about, what Starblast is talking about, is something that was not even known until maybe 2012, 2013. And this is the fact that the original broadcast audio, Anime Age did a wonderful video about this on his channel. I highly recommend everybody go see it. The original audio that was aired on television when Dragon Ball Z, and GT aired in Japan sounded completely different than what we got on the Dragon Box. The Dragon Box audio was, if I can be blunt, ass. That's the only cuss word I'll say today, bro. And that's not even a bad one. Ass.
Yeah.
Can I say it again? Ass.
Yeah. So the podcast was fine.
So what's sad about this, man, is there's a lot of people who want to watch this show in Japanese, and they buy the orange brick and switch over to Japanese. Like, why does it sound like that? There's like a hissing noise where it sounds just like it was recorded in a ham radio in someone's basement. The reason for this is because one of the things that Toei Animation did, and they weren't the only ones, let me just tell you, they were not the only ones. And Dragon Ball is not the only show to suffer this fate, because Sailor Moon and a lot of their other shows from the 90s, even their Super Sentai live action stuff suffered. Toei Animation had the original broadcast audio masters, which were high quality recordings with high quality microphones. The music was crisp, the voices are crisp, everything sounds like it was recorded yesterday. They threw them away. Now, the reason why they threw, and I mean literally threw them away, the reason why companies did this is because if you look at original audio, like master tapes, they're like, it ain't like a thumb drive back then. We're talking about this huge cylinder of, like, it's almost like a tape deck, but like big.
Mm-hmm.
These things took up room.
Yep.
And obviously we're talking about a multi-million-dollar company, maybe even billion-dollar company. They're way over $1 billion, but
probably
way over billions, I would say. But they can't even buy a warehouse to preserve this. So unfortunately, the Dragon Boxes did not have the original broadcast audio, nor were they color corrected. And let me get to the color correction thing here in a moment. One of the things nobody really talked about back then was the fact that the film that Toei had for Dragon Ball Z and GT, the original 16mm broadcast film, was not very well preserved. And if you're asking yourself, why would a billion-dollar company treat their biggest cash cow like this? I've been asking myself that for 20 years, and I ask myself that at least 10 times a day to this day. I've had a very like, during my Twitch streams, I've said F Toei I don't know how many times.
Yeah, just because of that.
Let's think about it, man. This is important. So because of that, the original 16mm film it deteriorates. Film deteriorates over time. In case you can't just film something on, like, film stock and throw it in your freaking closet. Dust gathers on it, artifacts. That's why there's, like, popping effects and things like that. Like, there's tape. Like there's pieces of tape from taping the film together that get stuck on there. There's like it's messy.
Yeah.
If you've ever worked at like a movie theater in the 90s, you know what I was talking about. So
yep.
yeah, it's a mess. So because of that, Pony Canyon was never told to color correct it because they didn't even know what the original colors were. But that's why, even if you have the Dragon boxes, you'll have weird situations where you'll have a green tint, or you'll have the sky looking green where it's supposed to be blue. You'll have Goku's gi looking more orange than red. Goku's gi is not like red. It's like an orangey red, but on the Dragon box, they look a little bit more yellow than red. Like when you look at the red, orange, yellow like color spectrum, it leans more this way when it should be more this way. Also, Piccolo, for some reason, Piccolo's like really bright green when it's supposed to be more of a darker green. So it's just little things. Yeah, if you ever study anything with film, live action or animated, you would learn more about color correction because they do this all the time in movies. You have to color correct it. And actually now with the advent of HDR and 4K, one of the problems with DVD and Blu Ray, and this is not a Dragon Ball question, or Dragon Ball thing, it's just overall film thing, is if you really notice, if you watch certain films like Star Wars, Saving Private Ryan, a lot of Blu-ray and DVD movies, people's skin is like orangey. Like, have you ever watched a movie where like their skin doesn't look like our skin does? Like it's kind of like almost like like they're almost like they're sick or something. Yeah, that's a problem that even Blu-rays had. Even Blu-rays had that problem, and that's because when 4K and high dynamic range came around, now if you go out and you buy Saving Private Ryan on 4K and you put it next to Blu-ray Saving Private Ryan and you have the same like 4K TV, Tom Hanks' skin looks like a human's in the 4K. It looks like an orange thing. It's very, unless you're
looks
really
like an orange Piccolo.
Kind of. I mean, unless most people listening probably will never even notice this, unless you really like. I think you'll notice it if you have a good TV and a 4K player. You'll notice it then, because even I didn't notice it until somebody pointed out. Like, okay, wait a minute. So it's not supposed to look like that.
Yeah, once you put something side by side, because then you can notice it then.
Yeah, but that's why, like, when you look at, like, the Dragon boxes and compare it to, like, actual, like, decent releases, which, never actually got finished. That's why, like, some characters look like they're sunburned. Everyone looks like they're sunburned in the Dragon boxes in comparison to, like,
but I'm not even talking about just Dragon Ball. People look sunburned in live action movies. That's my point. Like, even if you don't color correct your stuff properly, humans are gonna look weird. Also, have you ever watched a movie where you know that the background's supposed to be black, but it's not really black. It's like gray. Like you can still see kind of some white. It's not pitch black.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Right. It's like black, but like muffly black.
Yeah.
4K HDR with high dynamic range darkens that to where it looks exactly like how it's supposed to look. So this is not about Dragon Ball, but it is worth discussing when it comes to the color correction discussion. So the Dragon boxes are also incomplete because they're missing the original teaser trailers for the movies, and the order of next episode preview before the credits is changed. That's not a major issue in my opinion, but it is one that people should be aware of. It's not an exact replica of how it aired when it first came out on television. But besides that, the main issue, though, when it comes to just watching DBZ as a fan is the color correction, the lack of color correction, and the lack of original broadcast audio. But that's the best that we had. Beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They just
like you said, still to this day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And think about it; those are still better than the. Those came out 3 years before the Orange Bricks, and they're still better.
Yeah.
So, also, real quick sidebar: when they first put out the Dragon boxes, the big releases, they sold really well, but they were a limited release. They were only printing up a certain number of copies, and then what happened was they did re-release Dragon Ball and Z in single. They had like single DVDs that were like thin. They were like 6 episodes a disc. So if you couldn't afford the whole series, or if you only wanted a few episodes, you could go to the store and buy it. So if you're in Japan, you can still get the series. If you missed out on the Dragon box, you can still get those if you want. But that's just worth noting. So where'd you want to go next?
Okay, so basically, I want to get over to what happened when the Dragon boxes eventually did get released over here in the West.
Well, yeah. So fans were blowing up Funimation for quite some time about these Dragon boxes, to the point where the actors were getting asked about this at conventions, including, of course, Chris Sabat, who runs Okratron. So he has to investigate all this, because Chris Sabat, of all the actors that I've at least interviewed or spoken to, he's probably the one that cares the most about having the best video and audio presentation. He actually really cares. Sean does too. Sean himself has actually privately voiced, and he used a lot more colorful language. He's privately voiced his displeasure with the releases. He hasn't told me this himself. He agrees with me a lot about the marketing and presentation of Dragon Ball based on, like, you know, what he would do. Because he knows how big Dragon Ball is. He knows because he's the guy that has the longest lines at cons. So he knows, this could be... Why are they not giving... Like, you know, but you get what I'm saying. Those two definitely know. So word gets back to Funimation. Funimation reached out to Toei, and guess what? We're going to have our own Dragon Box releases. What they did was they took the two big Dragon Boxes, and they cut them up into 7 different boxes, and they released them limited edition in 2009. And so now, and they put them out every 3 months now, or every 4 months. Now, if you go to the store, you've got the orange bricks. The singles at this point were already gone. You could still get the singles in, like, the ones from the 90s. You could still get those in, like, GameStop and, you know, places like that, or like flea markets, pawn shops.
Like buy, sell, trade.
I got these VHS tapes at a book off. They were like $1 a piece or something.
I know why you got them.
Well, those are
trunks.
Those are actually worth some money too. Those are actually.
Oh yeah, I bet.
There's people who want them.
Oh dang. Okay, well, interesting. I might sell them.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Don't sell them yet. Don't sell them.
Okay.
We'll talk about that later. So, so what happened was we got 7 Dragon Boxes. There's 7 Dragon Balls, 7 Dragon Boxes. We got like a little replica of the Japanese Dragon books that I told you about that had the bios. We got a version of that. It wasn't as dense, but we got, like, each one had its own book.
Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah, it was like a mini version of what they got. It's the best home release that Funimation's ever put out. And it wasn't just... It was Funimation, Toei, and Pony Canyon all working together. Yeah. This was around 2009. Now, this was great because even Americans couldn't really get their hands on real Dragon boxes until this came out. So, and it's also... When they first came out, each box was... And this is kind of funny. If you went to Best Buy, they were $80, $79.95. If you bought it online from rightstuff.com, $35. So
crazy price difference.
Well, here's what really gets wacky. In the other room, I have all 7 Dragon boxes. I paid $34 each. Each one of those now is worth anywhere between $150 and $300, depending on who you ask, because they're out of print.
Yep.
Wow. They're out of print.
I used to have them and sold them a long time ago.
Did you make a profit?
Oh, yeah. That's why I sold them. Well, I didn't realize it. I forgot how long, I don't know, it was a couple of years went by, but I noticed it. I'm like, you know what? Let me just sell these. I'll just get the orange bricks for now. But I got.
That was a mistake.
Wait a second. Yeah. Hold on a second. So you mean to tell me? So hold on a second. You mean to tell me you had copies of the orange bricks, and now you're settling for the Blu Ray releases you have displayed in the background right there?
No.
He had copies of the Dragon boxes.
Yeah, the yellow Dragon boxes. All 7 of them.
He had the Dragon box that he sold.
Yeah, I know. So he's saying he sold the Dragon boxes, and what he has currently right now is the Blu-ray he's got displayed.
That's what I was waiting for. I'm like, let me wait for it to come out on Blu-ray, because I think a few years went by.
We haven't even gotten to that yet.
No, we haven't.
We're about a year away from that. We're now in the timeline. We're 08, 09, right around there.
Yeah, with the Dragon boxes.
Keep in mind, the orange bricks had just finished the previous year.
Yeah.
Like, I think maybe like 8 months prior. So let's say you're a Dragon Ball fan. You buy the orange bricks. All right, I got all of DBZ. I'm happy. I don't have the Dragon boxes, but I got it all. I'm good.
Yeah.
Coming soon, the Dragon Ball Z Dragon Boxes, the way it was meant to be seen. So that's twice now. It's the way it was meant to be seen.
It's like, wait, I thought I saw it the way it was meant to be seen before.
Funimation has used that argument like 4 times. Bro.
Yeah, they usually do say it in every promo, yeah. I always remember that.
I hate it. I hate it to death, bro, because it's such a lie. So,
yeah.
Again, you're a collector. Oh, great, Dragon Boxes. I got to buy all the episodes again. But that's fine, because at least I'm getting a good product. Yeah. Well, something else was going on right around this time. In Japan, in 2009, Dragon Ball Kai began to air. And when Dragon Ball Kai began to air, immediately Toei comes to Funimation, because at this point, they had already established a bit more of a relationship. Yeah. And here's why. Here's why they established more of a relationship. We're going to go back a bit.
Yeah.
Before Kai, in 2008, Sabat, I think, I'm not sure if it was Sabat, but somebody in Funimation, internally, probably a Dragon Ball fan, to be honest with you.
Probably.
They asked Toei, because all we had in 2008, and by the way, what I'm about to tell you, that wasn't even leaked to the internet until like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
This is like new information.
Yeah, yeah.
Somebody inside of Funimation asked Toei for higher quality Dragon Ball film. They wanted copies of the film. Yeah. Because other countries like China and I think Latin America had film copies. Yep. And Toei gave it to them. So in 2008, Funimation had in their possession, they had original Japanese, not the original, because Toei's not going to give anybody that. They had copies. They had like 3rd generation copies of 16mm Dragon Ball, all of Dragon Ball Z, and all of Dragon Ball. Not GT. They never had film of, but they had Dragon Ball and Z. Mm-hmm. We're talking about like the film, like the fat film reels. So nobody knew about this. For years. This was kept a secret for years. We had always thought that they were using the same 1990s SVHS, which is like an upgraded VHS tapes that Toei sent out. No, they had better stuff. So what they began to do is they began to prepare. It was early preparations for what would end up being the level sets. They wanted to. They were talking internally. We're going to re-release Dragon Ball Z again, but this time on Blu Ray, because by 08, everybody started. 08, everybody. I had my HDTV in like 2010, but I remember 08 is when Iron Man came out, and I remember Iron Man 1 was like a huge Blu Ray. People bought Blu Ray players for that movie.
Yep.
Yeah, because that was
started it all.
Started it all, bro.
Blu-ray's all the hype.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but what happened was, and again, you have to understand, America and Japan, there's 2 different timelines, but they're interjecting when it comes to like what happened.
Yeah.
So then Kai began. Kai was a recut Dragon Ball Z, celebrating the 20-year anniversary, where they would cut out the majority of, but not all the filler. And they also, because they were doing so much editing, they were redubbing it with the original voices, but they were going to get a new soundtrack. And they were also going to take the existing footage that they had, the existing Dragon Ball Z footage, and actually upscale it properly to high definition, like actually do an upscale, reanimate some scenes, because there is some reanimation to kind of tie scenes together, and there's also some toning down of other things. Obviously, you know about what happened with Porygon, with the kids having seizures in Japan. For the Kai release, for example, if you watch the Goku Vegeta beam struggle from the Saiyan Saga, Z version's got blinking lights all over the screen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Kai version does not. They had to clean all that out because the probability of seizures goes up with high definition because of how clear the footage is.
Yeah.
So, Kai comes out in Japan. Kai's coming out. Big deal. Huge deal. It's Kai. Yeah. Because it was the first time the Japanese had Dragon Ball Z in high. It was the first time anybody had Dragon Ball Z in high definition.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't Dragon Ball Z. It was Kai. It's not the same thing. It's recut.
Yeah.
Like
they got chopped up, different music, different voices, different everything. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like that too, and like that they even had like these different animated clips in there that they added in that which wasn't in Z, and this weird like digital like animation
new intro
software.
And outro.
Well, not even just this. Well, not even just that. Like I remember, I'm watching like this episode where Zarbon is about to fight off against Vegeta for the second time, and they switch off to this like this really like cheesy, bad looking like animation with that's done digitally, and because of the fact that it's so looks so different from hand drawn, it doesn't have that same depth, and it just looks like no. bad.
Don't get it twisted. Now you said hand drawn; they're both hand drawn. See, that's the thing. The digital art and the original animation are both hand drawn. It's not about who draws them. It's about how they're formatted. Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Ball GT were shot on 16 millimeter film. Any anime from 2002 to 2005 until today is shot on digital. Same thing goes for movies. This whole digital revolution began in the early 2000s with George Lucas and Episode 2 Attack of the Clones. Every movie that is shot now, except for movies from Christopher Nolan, Quentin Tarantino, these like more Rian Johnson, these filmmakers, they're all shot with digital cameras. There's a difference between digital and film. Digital is basically a micro SD card. Literally, it's a hard drive that you can take a file, you move it to a computer, and you can visually edit the effects right there.
Yeah.
With film, you have to take the film, scan it scene by scene into the computer, and then it's a totally different process. Again, if you're not well versed in like this type of shit, this type of stuff, excuse me.
Nah, you're good.
Don't worry, you won't get demonetized this late. It's too late into the video, but they ain't gonna notice. But if you don't know about this, there's a lot of information out there. To me, it's very interesting. But there's a reason as to why. There's a reason as to why old movies look better than new ones. Heesh will oftentimes be in my Discord and I'll be watching movies, and I'll point out why does a movie look better? Because film I can't say will always, but film up until now is significantly superior to digital.
That's why Tarantino uses it. Yeah.
He's never going to digital, bro.
Remember, never.
Him and Robert Rodriguez butted heads because he wanted him to go digital for what was that movie? Sin City. He wanted for Sin City. He wanted, I think it was Sin City. He wanted Quentin to shoot his scene in digital, and Quentin's like, I'm not using that crap camera. Like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
But movies are easier in digital though, because for example, let's take Starblast. He's an editor. He edits digitally on his computer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If we were making videos on film, this man would have to take the film and get scissors and cut, chop, and tape it. Like that's how they used to edit
like
movies.
5 times.
That's how they would edit movies. Dude, King Kong was edited like that, bro. The old King Kong movies.
Yep. The claymation. Yep.
That's why it's called cutting, because they literally cut the film and taped it to make all the scenes go through. So you imagine like being an editor, a video editor back then.
It's kind of like they did it like stop motion.
Yeah, like right. Because it's frame. Anyways, bottom line, without getting too granular, Kai was done with digital technology. Z was done with analog film technology, and that's why it's so easy to notice what's from Kai and what's from Z based on the fact that your eyes, the human eye, can only see so much. Our eyes are only trained to see so many colors, and we can tell the difference between real life and digital. You look at me right now, I'm a human being. We're all human beings here. Yeah. Even if you look at somebody like a Thanos, who's not real but is very good CG, very good CG, motion capture. He doesn't look like, there's no such thing as Thanos, and we know that. As human beings, we watch that movie and we know there's no such thing as Thanos. Yeah. So you can the human eye can tell the difference between film and digital effects. Anyways, long story short, Kai comes out. Toei wants Funimation to dub Kai right away. So in 2010, they begin dubbing Kai. Now, the good news is they were able to go back and do a more adult dub. Yeah. They rechanged some of the voices. At that point, obviously, Stephanie Nadolny got replaced by Colleen Clinkenbeard, and then Chris Ayres replaced Linda Young as Frieza. And, you know, it was a new, more adult... There is a censored version, but it's not quite as censored as Z was. Yeah. There's obviously the Blue Popo version, which is not... That's the Toon's Eye version. That wasn't even Funimation. Like, that's not even that. They took it and they messed it up. But anyways,
well, it didn't even then, like with the Toon's Eye version, they I feel like Sean Schimmel or something like that. They had him record, like, instead of calling it the Spirit Bomb, they called it the Spirit Blast or something weird like that.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that.
Oh no.
Yeah, the Toon's Eye version has weird things that aren't good. It's like it's for kids. It's like for kids level editing. You know, like Ash is eating a rice cake and it's a cheeseburger.
And like, Sanji had
they called it a donut. They called it a
donut.
Yeah.
And somebody had a cigarette that they would erase.
It was Sanji. He had a lollipop.
Sanji from One Piece.
It was a lollipop. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
that's he had such a bad voice too. Oh no.
Yeah, that was. I mean, and the sad thing is that 4Kids still around. They're still
Are they
doing their thing, man.
Oh no.
Yeah, they still do Pokemon, right? Do they still do Pokemon? Am I wrong on that?
Oh,
they still dub Pokemon.
Them.
Right? I think so.
I don't remember. I don't remember right now.
I could be wrong. I don't know anything about 4Kids. I don't care to because this is not what this is about.
Yeah.
So, Dragon Ball. So, while Kai was coming out, we now have, like I've mentioned, the new cut of Z.
Yeah.
Funimation does their own dub. It airs on Nickelodeon, whatever. But what happens is they're going to put it out on home video. But we got a problem. Mm-hmm. Because we're in a transitional phase now between DVD and Blu Ray, they had to put Kai on DVD and Blu Ray.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to make one quick note of something. Kai is in widescreen.
Yep.
Kai, the difference between Funimation's cropping of the orange bricks and what Kai did is that Kai did not just crop the top and bottom. The people who worked on Kai went scene by scene and reframed it. So instead of cropping right down the middle, sometimes they'd crop the bottom. So the crop was kind of like this. You see it on my screen here, and it would change depending on the scene, so you wouldn't miss most of the details. So it's still a crop, but it's not the same kind of crop that Funimation did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's more. They took more care of it.
Yeah.
So that comes out. So, once again, I'm a 10-year-old kid. I tell my mom, Mommy, I want Dragon Ball Z. Buy me Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
Mommy goes to Best Buy, and what does Mommy see? I'm going to tell you what Mommy sees. Yes. And I'm going to do the purple-haired Karen gimmick. Excuse me, can you help me find Dragon Ball Z? Blah, blah, blah. Here it is. Oh, here's Dragon Ball Z, ma'am. Okay, let's see. Dragon Ball Z, the orange brick. Dragon Ball Z Kai on DVD. Kai on Blu-ray. Dragon Ball Dragon Box 1.
Yeah.
It's the same episodes. The exact same story of Raditz and Vegeta Saga. In 5 different releases at the same time.
Yeah.
5.
So then, what does she get?
What does she get?
Exactly.
What does she do? Well, guess what they picked? Which is the cheapest one?
Yeah.
Orange bricks.
Yep.
That's why everybody remembers them. That's why, and so because of that, you literally had Kai, and granted, Kai. We know Kai has a different show. I'm talking about from the perspective of a mom who doesn't know any better, or a friend who's not a fan. If you're not a fan and you don't know what to look for, because if you go to Google, you're not going to get any answers. You have to go somewhere deeper than that, and Google will not give you the right answer when it comes to this kind of type of stuff because it's too granular.
Yeah.
Google's usually right, but like this type of stuff is way too intense. So, once again, you've got 5 different releases.
Yep.
Another problem. So Kai's coming out. Oh, but we already got this 16mm film from Toei. We're supposed to do our own Dragon Ball Z remaster, which on high definition, which they had already begun. But because they had already started putting money into it, well, we can't stop now. So they did. So here come the level sets. So you got 5 different versions of Dragon Ball Z in the store, and now you have a 6th one.
Yep.
You got Orange Brick. You got Orange Brick. Dragon Box. because they were still in stores for a very limited time back then.
Yeah.
Kai Blu-ray, Kai DVD, Z Blu-ray, and Z DVD, which is the red brick, or the orange brick. So once again, how confusing! They put out so many Dragon Ball releases at once that the casual fans didn't know what to pick, and the hardcore fans kept getting more and more mad because they already paid. Just imagine if you bought the DVDs in the 90s, bought the Ultimate Uncuts, you got screwed, bought the orange bricks, bought the Dragon boxes. Now here come the level sets, which were actually done pretty good.
The best sets way to see Dragon Ball Saiyan Saga and such, everything.
Yeah. It used to be. Not anymore.
It used to be.
But it was, because the AI upscales that the fans did look better.
Oh, no. Okay, best official looking.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. You're right about that. He's right.
Okay.
Yeah, the level sets are the best official looking. So let me rewind a little bit here. So we've got all of these Dragon Ball Z. It's the same fight with Raditz, the same fight with Vegeta, the same content, Nappa, and once again, 6 different releases now. The 6th one became the level sets. So if the previous 5 were on the market for so long, and if by the time the level sets came out, people had already made their decision about what they were going to buy, they either bought into the oranges or the Kai, whatever they bought.
Yeah, the Blu Rays, yeah.
Now you expect them to buy it again? And ultimately, bro, it's really frustrating because whoever was in charge of this, I'll never understand.
Yeah.
If they had just waited a few years, if they had just actually waited a few years by the time people were this thing was more in demand for a better version of Z, it would have definitely sold a lot better than it would at that point in time. And this is this is the problem with the level set. So basically, long story short, Funimation oversaturated the market with Dragon Ball Z. It wasn't necessarily all of their fault, because the thing with Kai was that was a thing that Toei just kind of did out of what they weren't expecting. That wasn't their call. Yeah, it was exactly. It wasn't their call, but it definitely influenced the market. The one thing that was their call was the way that the level sets were officially released, and in that sense, that's where the problem came in. So when the level sets did not sell well due to the oversaturation and such, people just did not want to. People just did not buy. They're just what, cancel the level sets. We're not going to do this anymore.
Well, we should also point out, just to add to what you're saying, the level sets were also not cheap either. Anime on Blu-ray is always not going to cost the same as a movie. It's always more expensive, especially if it's a good anime that's well animated and well remastered. You're going to pay some money for it, you are. You might get some deals here and there. I got Yu Yu Hakusho and Outlaw Star on a discount, but typically anime Blu-rays are not cheap. So when Dragon Ball Z level set 1.1 and 1.2 came out, they were just, why would I buy this if I have the orange brick? Dude, if I'm living paycheck to paycheck, I don't care about a Blu-ray. I don't even have a Blu-ray player. I'm just gonna buy the orange brick. Or if I'm working at a grocery store and I got a kid or something like that, I'm not gonna prioritize the I guess you can call it the boutique. The word that's used in the film industry or in the film fan industry is boutique release, which is fancier release called boutique. Because we pretend like we're high artists here, even though it's a movie about kung fu movie or a boutique. Anyways, freaking Independence Day is a boutique film, whatever. But what I was gonna say was, because exactly what he said. Not only did they not sell, they actually 1 and 2 came out, and then they had advertised level set 3 and level set 4, which was 2.1 and 2.2, which was the Namek Saga. So once again, just like history repeats itself, just like the Ultimate Uncut editions. Oh, hey, cool, I'm going to start buying. Okay, so let's say I'm the one guy who's like, you know what? I miss the Dragon boxes. I don't really want to get Kai. I'm more of a Z fan. And I don't want the orange bricks. I think I'm going to start here. I'm going to get these. I heard about how good they are. So the guy starts buying. He buys level set 1, level set 2. Okay, cool. No more level sets. They canceled them. Why'd they cancel them? Because they spent too much money on the remastering process, and they didn't make enough of it back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, as a result of that, those level sets sold probably worse of any of the other ones because they came out last. You gotta remember, they came out last.
I grabbed them too. I remember I
have them. I grabbed them years later when they canceled them because I knew they were going to be worth something.
Yeah.
So I got them in the other room. But yeah, they're gone. So at this point, it's ridiculous. Eventually, what would happen was the orange bricks, they stopped producing them. I'm sorry, the Dragon boxes, they stopped producing them. And Kai is still being produced, but primarily on Blu-ray. There's not that many Kai DVDs left over. Yeah. So right now, if you're going to go shopping for DBZ like at a store, you're probably going to see the orange bricks and the Kai Blu-rays and those Blu-rays that you guys have behind you there.
The most basic Blu-rays for Dragon Ball Z.
We'll get to those next.
We'll
get to those next.
Hey everyone, Geekdom101 here. So that is the end of part 1 of episode 11 of the Plastic Power Podcast featuring Geekdom 101. Part 2 is on the way. It'll be uploaded in the upcoming days, either tomorrow, Monday, or Tuesday, or if anything, by Wednesday. So be sure to be on the lookout for that. Also, be sure to head over to Geekdom101's Twitch, where he live streams the original Dragon Ball Z from episode 1 is where he started. It's the original Dragon Ball Z from when it first aired. My dog's drinking water. Thanks, buddy. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like. Thanks for watching, and don't forget, we will see you in part 2. Coming soon to a Daredevil 19 YouTube channel near you.